A useful technique for bookbinders to learn is how to deal with sewing when you have a thick book. I'm just going to be, I'm in the process of resewing this rather large book. I say large, it's basically just many thin signatures. So I've repaired and strengthened the spines on this old book, and I pierced it ready for sewing. The problem is that if you just sewed it as normal, what you would end up with, because there's a lot of sections, there's going to be a lot of thread, and if there's a lot of thread you're going to get a lot of swell at the spine, which could cause problems. So using a technique called sewing two on is a way of avoiding that, or reducing the effect of that. And essentially it means that you're sewing two sections on at a time. So I'll just show you how to do that. The first three sections I've just sewn on as normal, just going all the way along and so on. I'm not using a link stitch on this because I'm using tapes. I don't feel it's necessary, though you can if you wish. So the next section comes across. I've just marked the centre so I know where it is. And I just start off initially as normal, just sewing through to the first tape. Just get through there. But instead of going around the tape and going back in, what I'm going to do now is bring the next section over. Line that up and go in to that one. So I've moved up a section basically. Now here's an example which is a useful one to show you of a little tip. I'm having trouble actually finding, well I can see the hole, but actually getting my needle through it. So just using a hypodermic needle, I'm going in from the inside like so, and because the hypodermic needle is hollow, I can just put the sewing needle inside and push through, and it just gives me guidance as to getting through without stabbing the paper and making a bit of a mess. So I've gone into the second section, pulled it through, and now I go down to the first section again. I'm going to use my needle just to ensure I've got exactly the right position. And so I'm back down in the first section of the pair. Back out again. And then back up to the second section of the pair. So you can see I'm alternating between the sections as I move. Move along there. And then for the final section I'm going to go around the tape and down to the first section again. This is why it's useful to have these bits of papering, because I have to find the centre of each section as I'm going along, so it just makes it a little bit easier. And then back out to the kettle stitch, like so. I'm just going to remove those bits of paper, don't need those anymore. Press down, pull tight, so it's taut rather tight, so you know, so it's a gentle pull, and then the kettle stitch as you would normally do. And that's then ready for the next pair, and so I'll continue like that, doing a kettle stitch at each end. The kettle stitch, you will find when you get to each end you have to go down further than you normally do, because you're down 2 or 3 sections to find the next stitch, but that's kind of obvious when you do it really. So I'm just going to continue in that vein, get the next section over. Okay, so I'm down to the last couple of sections now, so I'm going to go back to single section sewing and just to finish that off. The thread that I'm using here is quite thin thread. It's the linen thread, pre-waxed, and it's 35/3, which is quite a thin thread, but it is extremely strong. So again, I've chosen that because that will help to reduce the swell. You may also notice that the tapes are in slightly peculiar unsymmetrical positions. That's simply because I'm basically using as many as possible of the original sewing holes. This actually only had 2 tapes originally, so I've had to adapt it slightly, but any opportunity to reduce the number of sewing holes is obviously advantageous, because it otherwise can affect the strength of the section. So this is the leather jointed end paper just going on. The white sheet on the top is just a waste sheet, which will be removed later just to protect the end papers. Okay. Make sure it's all tight. Double kettle stitch to finish it off. There's one. There's 2. So we'll take the block out, have a look at it. So essentially we've used almost half of the sewing thread that we would have used had we just sewn each section individually. And the result of that is that clearly there is swell. Of course there's going to be swell because there's extra thread in there, but it's nowhere near what it would have been. So I'm really quite happy with that. So I can now get to rounding and backing and finishing that off.